Hey everyone, my name is Eric Bond, and welcome to today's session, which is called Real Founders Pitch a VC. All right, so this is my favorite event of the quarter. And why? Well, it turns out that when I was a founder, I was super frustrated about venture capitalists. They never gave me any feedback or any opportunity to learn and improve when I was pitching, 15 years ago. This is an industry that is traditionally a black box. And while Patagonia vested VCs were generous to smile and nod at my pitch, after the meeting, they would just ghost me. All right. And that's a tradition that we are going to stop right now. Today, we have two awesome founders, maybe a third one that could be joining, we'll see, who will be sharing their pitch with us. And I'm joined by my co-founder, Elizabeth Yin. We will be providing these founders unfiltered feedback on exactly what we're thinking along the way. This is going to be a lot of fun. Again, my nickname, if you've been to previous sessions, is for Elizabeth is the Velvet Hammer. She's super direct, but yet has a subtle touch. And we're going to see if she can live up to her reputation as the Velvet Hammer. All right, let me go ahead and share the screen just to give you a sense of how we're going to structure today's session. So here's the agenda. Pretty chill, pretty fast. We are going to introduce ourselves, Elizabeth. Then we're going to get into talking to the founders and hearing their pitch. We have a pretty simple format. Each founder is going to get 5 minutes of time to pitch their presentation. They're going to have then 5 minutes of critique of questions, back clarifications from me and Elizabeth. And then finally, we're going to leave a little bit of time, 5 minutes-ish, for you and the audience to ask your questions as well. So if you have questions, we have our producer, our creative director, Hung Pham, here. He's going to help us to monitor the questions that come in through the Q&A. Please don't use the chat to submit your questions. That's going to be a little bit too hard for us to monitor, but definitely use the chat to, make fun of me and Elizabeth, or, chatter or whatever, gossip, whatever you want to do. So, and then at the very end, after we're done with hearing the founder pitches, we are going to then go into more of a general Q&A. And again, this is an opportunity for you to ask your questions, to clarify anything you heard from the previous founder pitches, or we can sort of have an open discussion as well about just pitching in general and things that you might have learned and would like to have clarified by either the founders or myself. So that is the agenda for today's session. So let's move on. And I just want to recognize the fact that we are able to put together this quarterly series on live pitches, as well as our monthly webinar series, only because we have amazing partners that are allowing us to do this work. So I just want to call out our sponsor for today, NetSuite, and share a little bit about what they're up to. Getting to a yes from an investor often requires more than just nailing your pitch. Founders need to have a plan to scale both their business and their infrastructure. NetSuite, the #1 cloud-based ERP for startups, provides dashboards and pre-built reports that quickly and easily illustrate your momentum and progress to investors, giving them the confidence to offer additional funding. Access APIs, workflows, and built-in financial reporting capabilities specifically tailored to your industry to ensure you are providing investors with the clearest view of your business possible. To learn more about NetSuite for startups, visit netsuite.com. Elizabeth, last I checked, we had 247 companies across funds 1 and 2 at Hustle Fund. A very, very good portion of them are actually happy NetSuite clients. So check out netsuite.com. Thank you all so much for making this session possible today. Okay, let's move on to the introductions. We're not really going to talk about this too much. I will share like a fun fact though. 2 fun facts. How about one truth and a lie? So one truth and a lie. I met Elizabeth 21 years ago when we were both 18 years old in college. The other truth or lie. The moment I met her, I decided I will never create a VC fund with her ever. Right? You can decide which one's the truth, which one's the lie. Okay. Anyway, that's enough. So let's get ready to pitch. So originally we had 3 founders that we were going to have sharing their whole pitch, their 5 minutes and so forth. But it looks like only two is available. Well, actually, we got Antakunle back. We'll try to make this work. But Adekunle, good to see you. We'll come to you next, but we'll begin with Pablo, who's going to talk about Flora, and then followed up with Adekunle, who is going to pitch Livable, and then finally Sophia, she's going to round us out talking about Jade. So I guess I'm going to turn it then over to Pablo and turn on my timer. Pablo, are you there? Can you hear us?
I am here. I can hear you guys.
Fantastic. Well, welcome to today's live pitch session. What I'm going to do is then switch it over and share your slides. So just 1 second here. And let us, there we go. Okay, so we're up. And whenever you're ready, you can begin your 5 minutes.
Awesome. All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Pablo Bello. I am the founder and CEO of Flora Health, a platform for the diagnosis and holistic treatment of IBS. Next slide. Now, this is personal to me. I started suffering from digestive problems when I was 13. And right after college, my symptoms got really, really severe. It took me 10 years to finally come across a holistic doctor who could treat my underlying conditions. As a startup person, it became my mission to really simplify this whole process. Next slide. Now, 30 million Americans suffer from IBS, and this is a really debilitating disorder. On any given day, 2 million people will miss school or work because of their symptoms. Next slide. Now, conventional medicine doesn't do a good job of treating IBS for 3 reasons. First, patients don't like to talk about IBS with their clinicians because either they're embarrassed by it or because clinicians tend to downplay a lot of digestive problems. So for those who do actually finally get a diagnosis, unfortunately, treatment really focuses on short-term relief of the symptoms and not the underlying root cause of those symptoms. So half of patients are left with looking for alternative remedies, which are hard to navigate without a clinician. Next slide. So our platform fixes this. We essentially give free assessments of underlying conditions to the patients, and then they can use those results and talk with their clinicians, use one of our clinicians, or do some at-home testing on their own. Next slide. And once they understand better their condition, they can then purchase treatments right through the platform or the app. And we essentially guide them step by step through their treatment regimen, whether or not they use a clinician. Next slide. So here's where we have a great opportunity to leverage the existing ecosystem of brands and companies. Essentially, any referral or any purchase done through our platform, we want to get some kickbacks for that. So for a go-to-market, we plan to start with something simple, like an Amazon affiliate program that will buy us time to create partnerships with a lot of these brands. Next slide. So our competitors are taking what I like to call a concierge service approach to this problem, where they have monthly fees as a gate to get a diagnosis and treatment. Having gone through IBS myself, I know that what a patient really wants at the beginning is answers. And so given our mission, we want to give that away for free. And then we only monetize on purchase treatment. That's our differentiator. Next slide. This is a lot, but I want to really take 3 things away from a market size. IBS is a huge market. We're going to start with mild undiagnosed cases and mostly with young professionals because they're the perfect early adopter. And once we figure out IBS, it's pretty easy for us to go to other gut-related conditions that also can be treated holistically, like autoimmune disorders and allergies. Next slide. So here I want to focus on the acquisition column on the right. Like I mentioned earlier, IBS patients really want answers, and they go online to online groups like in Reddit and Facebook to find those answers. So we want to start there. Then we want to shift our focus to content generation, doing things like diagnostic test rankings, right? That will bring a lot of organic visitors into our platform. And finally, we want to focus on social media ads that target the IBS symptoms, which is something that we haven't seen very much of and we're pretty excited about. Next slide. Now we have an awesome team. I have 10 years of experience working in startups. More recently, I've worked as a head of product at 2 different Techstars companies. Daria and Dimitro bring a ton of tech experience, and Drew has worked as a HIPAA consultant in over 10 startups. So we think we have the right team, but our big focus is going to be on learning at this stage and not just execution. Next slide. So as far as our pre-seed goes, the way we're thinking of it is, what do we need to raise a proper seed? And for us, that means 5,000 users, at least $100,000 worth of gross merchandise volume through the platform, and $500,000 will let us get there, as well as bringing in a medical advisor and the full-time employees we need to make that happen. Next slide. That's it. Thank you.
All right. Well, if you're in the chat, can you give a virtual clap to Pablo there? That was 4 minutes, 36 seconds. Very, very tight pitch. Great work. So I'd like to turn it over to my colleague, Elizabeth. By the way, you're muted right now, to start things off with the questions and clarifications for Pablo.
First off, Pablo, I thought that was an excellent pitch. So I actually don't have any comments on the pitch itself. But I think the thing that I latch onto a lot, and that's just me personally as an investor, is like the unit economics of it. So I think one of the questions that I have, and flipping it back at you, one of the reasons why I actually think that your competitors may charge subscription is subscription very often helps with the lifetime value, which gives you more buffer to essentially, quote, buy customers, right? You can afford to spend more. So how do you think about your go-to-market when effectively you have this free thing for people to try and you're only getting 10%, cut from Amazon and all this stuff? Like, what do you think is your plan around acquiring customers?
Yeah, you're spot on, by the way. The fact that the reason why our competitors are charging a monthly fee is because of that, because the cost of acquiring a customer can be quite high. When you're going after it as here we are essentially a vertically integrated clinic, telemedicine clinic. I want to be more than that. I don't want to just be a D2C medical startup. I want to create a platform where now we can do things like, for example, looking at across all the different types of treatments that all these different apps are, touting essentially. So how, as far as acquiring customers, I think it has to be slightly different. We're not just expecting them to convert. We're trying to create a community, right? And that's a little bit different. So as far as we're gonna definitely have, perhaps for converted users, we're gonna have much lower lifetime values for sure. But our cost of acquiring customers should be lower because we can attract more organic flow than not just paying for customers, if that makes sense. And by the way, this is all a hypothesis at this stage, right? Mm-hmm. I need to validate those ideas. And that's why I'm raising this pre-seed. Yeah.
Awesome. I was really excited about your decision to participate, Pablo, because I actually am a sufferer as well. So I have ulcerative colitis. It's like the more extreme end of IBS. It's inflammatory bowel disease, incurable, right? And but gut flora intervention, I credit to actually allowing me to stay healthy for the past few years. So the spirit of what you're doing, I think I deeply agree with. The part that I think is a little bit troublesome just from a user perspective, as someone that kind of feels the space as a user, is it's hard to get a good closed feedback loop on whether it's working or not, right? And this is kind of I kind of generally want to get your sense of how you think about retention, because what I found was that it took about 2 years of experimentation on different kinds of probiotics, diet changes, et cetera, to find what was right for myself. And it seems like IBS is not really a disease versus a collection, an idea of these symptoms are sort of common, but very personalized in terms of how is it rooted or triggered within an individual. So, I mean, let's start with the closed feedback loop part of it. What kind of early feedback have you heard about, when you use this platform, I can sort of feel like I'm on the right path?
Yeah, so your journey, by the way, is exactly the journey that most IBS patients are going through. And I'm very active on Reddit, talking to folks in subreddits like IBS and IBS Help. So you're spot on. The fact is, currently in a longer slide deck that I have, not this short 5-minute version, I actually speak to this, which is that with complementary and alternative medicine, as successful as it has been at really treating these gut conditions compared to pharmaceuticals, unfortunately, you are doing a lot of trial and error. Now, we don't want to just become a food tracker or a diet tracker or a symptom tracker, because I think that only gives you so much. You need to have a clinician involved in the process, and you need to have a lot more data. So when I think about what is really exciting about this, well, we can not just understand exactly what it is that our users are taking, because now we're helping them with the treatment regimen that they decided to go forward with, or that their clinician gave them. And then we can actually start doing things like, oh, let's actually keep track of what are your bowel movements each day. It doesn't have to be incredibly specific too. You can do day-to-day simple, like 1 minute check-ins. And now you can start looking at that data, and now it becomes helpful because you know what they took. And that's the part that's missing with a lot of these. If you go, I didn't have them as part of our competitors, but there are a lot of great diet trackers and symptom trackers out there. Great, awesome. But the problem is that they're just a small part of the big picture, which is you need to understand the journey. My diagnostic data, my decisions for a treatment regimen, and how do I feel afterwards. So you're spot on, Eric. And by the way, let's not forget that with probiotics specifically, where if you have dysbiosis and you have an overgrowth of certain certain bad bacteria, if you want to call it that, pathogenic bacteria, it doesn't matter how much probiotics you take. Like you're not going to feel better. It's going to be very hard for you to like push that. Little bits of details like that self-treatment doesn't always kind of capture that. And we want to facilitate that.
Cool. Elizabeth, I want you to sneak in one more question before we maybe open it up to seeing Hung if there's some audience questions that could be relevant here.
Yeah, I mean, I think building kind of on my last question then, if this is about community, I guess, how do you still have to get, whether you're getting paid users or not, like you still have to start somewhere. So how do you think about bringing people and keeping them engaged in your community? Are there things that you're doing right now?
Yeah, well, right now what we're working on is a proof of concept website. Something super simple. It's going to be fixmyibs.com. So everyone, all the audience members, if you have IBS, fixmyibs.com will hopefully be ready in like a couple weeks. You go in, put in a bunch of information, gives you a free risk assessment of what might be wrong with you, not just IBS, like dysbiosis, low stomach acid, stuff like that. So as far as creating a community, I didn't want to start there because for me, the way I think of it is you first have to give value. It can't just be an open forum of what are my symptoms, who else has suffered from this. That's not going to be incredibly helpful. The problem in this industry is access to knowledge. It's really democratizing knowledge. So for me to build a community, I'm thinking of it as, let's start there. Let's start by talking about what are all the different types of tests available and what are the pros and cons. Nobody has built that. So when I think about community, I don't think of it as a Reddit forum. I don't think that's incredibly helpful. It could be at some point, but I want to start out by creating a safe space for everyone to, and by the way, we don't have any stake on it because we're not selling diagnostic testing. So we can be an impartial type of like arbitrator, if you will. I don't know if that answers your question. I'm sorry, but yeah, that's how I'm thinking of it.
It does. And actually, I'll just put in a comment. I mean, I think if just tritely speaking, if I had to say, like, I would roughly bifurcate into two strategies for this kind of thing. One is you try to maximize your unit economics, like get the best lifetime value you can. That's the subscription players. And then you go and exhaust all these customer acquisition channels because you know how much you can spend. The other strategy is almost the exact opposite, which you're describing, which is building a community. You're the neutral party. You don't make products or whatever. That's like the nerd wallet strategy. That's a much longer term thing. You're not going to monetize quickly right away, but like know that it's that longer term game. But I think where people fail is when they try to do both and not really well. And it's unclear to me, like kind of which strategy you're in. And so my recommendation would be I personally think the former is easier, and that's why people tend to do that. But that's just my quick feedback on that.
Well, Pablo, don't respond to what Elizabeth said. Hung, I want to see if we can sneak in one more very quick question. If like Pablo can share a 30-sec.
Sure, of course. Danny asked, healthcare is one of the toughest markets to bring change, especially with technology. Your team doesn't have many direct medical connections. How do you plan to infiltrate the market?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm not a doctor, and our big thing with the pre-seed is to bring in the right medical advisor. So I didn't want to force that. I wanted to make sure that I had a vision in place and I had proof of concepts. And as far as, I am working right now with a clinician, but he's not an advisor per se. So that is, I'm very self-aware of the fact that this is a medical startup and I don't have a medical person in the team. And at this stage, I don't think it's necessary. I think it's important for me to understand why it is that, the fact that I don't have that person and the fact that I need to bring in that person. And that's how I think of it.
Thank you so much. Well, let's give some claps to Pablo, co-founder of Flora. Really great job pitching, responding to our questions. What I want to do next is to bring up to the attention Adekunle. Can you hear us, Adekunle? Are you there? I think you're still.
Yes, I can hear you. Hello.
Oh, hello. Great. Awesome. Well, if you're ready, we would love to hear your 5-minute pitch.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. It's evening in Lagos, so good evening, everyone. Probably morning in the US. Thank you for having me. My name is Adekunle, and I have a background in computer science and retail. I'm building Livable, and Livable is solving home renting for middle-class Africans, starting from Lagos. Next slide, please. So if you are going to rent a house, I mean, Eric, if you came to Nigeria, you're going to rent a house today, you would have to go through, say, a chain of 4 agents, Pablo, Ong, and a couple of others to get to the landlord. What happens in that space is that there is a lack of transparency, and fees go up to about 50%, right? So next slide, please. The way Livable is solving this problem, next again, is that we are getting current tenants to list their apartments into sort of like a private list, and they're telling us when their tenancy is expiring, right? When new tenants try to get the apartments, we sort of share that information with them and connect them to the landlord because we know when tenants are moving out. So unlike other websites where you only find the apartments when they are available already, we get information about the apartments before they go on the market because the current tenants tell us about that. The second thing that current tenants do is that they give us extra information about the apartments. Natural agents are incentivized to just sell. They are not interested in giving extra information. They just want to sell and move on. Current tenants have a lot of information, right? Our market size is really big. So there's about $12 billion in home renting and living. And the way we make money today is that we get a commission of rentals. And then the second thing that we do is that when people are moving, we do referrals. So we get commissions on referrals for moving services, for furniture services, for home decoration services, and so on and so forth. Our acquisition methods are very simple. We just partner. We partner with marriage registries, for example, because when people are getting married, they usually move to a new apartment. We partner with local restaurants to get information about people living in these locations. The second acquisition method we use is content. In this space, there is not enough knowledge about how to rent, about prices in locations. So we build a lot of content to get customers on our site. We've made about $6,000 in the last 7 weeks. We actually launched 7 weeks ago from offering services around renting. And our team is made of myself. I have a computer science background, but I'm in charge of products. I have colleagues to the former real estate agents.
Oh, shoot, Dr. Kunle, can you hear us still? We've been experiencing a little bit of connectivity issues leading up to this. Are you back, Adekunle? Can you hear us?
Yes, I'm actually here. Where did you miss me?
Well, tell us what slide you're on, and we can just continue from there.
Okay, all right. Yeah, let's just do adoption strategy. That's where we are.
Adoption strategy. Okay. Yeah. Okay, great.
Yeah. Please, so I mean, we're doing partnerships and mostly partnerships and content. So we're partnering with the marriage registry, house registry, savings platforms, because in Nigeria the second highest volume of savings is so that you can rent apartments. We're doing social and we're doing newsletters. Right. Next, please. I mean, if you compare us to our competitors, right, we actually reduce the cost of renting an apartment for our clients, and then we offer support to landlords. We also offer extra support to tenants because they can get extra services like moving services, and they can get access to a furniture marketplace or a home decoration marketplace, which current agents do not do. Next, please. Yeah, these are initial reactions to Livable in Lagos. People are excited about what we're building. People are listing their apartments because they think that we can solve the home renting problem in Lagos. Next, please. We're raising about $150,000. We want to get to 10,000 listings and a revenue of about 400,000 US dollars. I shared already about our team. Might includes myself, computer science grad, in charge of products. There's a computer science grad who's in charge of tech. His name is Emmanuel. And then finally, Collins has experience in real estate and has joined us on the team to help with customer acquisition. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. And even with the technical difficulties, still within 5 minutes. So let's share some virtual claps to Adekunle, the co-founder at Livable, Nigeria. Elizabeth, do you want to start with your questions or feedback?
Sure. So I may have missed this, but you mentioned that one of the ways that you get listings is by talking with current tenants who are then moving out. Do you pay them? And if so, how much is that, or what does that structure look like?
Oh yes, so we give them about 40% of the commissions that we earn. So that there's actually just incentive for them to list. If you're not moving immediately, they can actually earn money from points from partner services. So for example, we have partners that do furniture, home appliances. We give them sort of discounts on those websites, right? So that when they are moving, then they can earn the 40% on commissions.
And I think a follow-up, do you have them list that well before they move out? Like, let's say that I have a lease for, I don't know, 8 more months. Would I be listing this now, or do you have to get the timing right?
So what we've done right now is that we've put out, most of our ads are targeting people moving out within the next 3 months. So if you made a decision to move out in the next 3 months, right, you've probably listed on our site. However, right, what's important to us is that you list regardless of if you're moving out now or in the future, because of the hyperlocal e-commerce services that we offer, right, with our partners. So if you're moving now or in the future, you probably want to buy furniture, you probably want to buy home appliances, or you want to get access to sort of a direct-to-consumer grocery business. We partner with all those businesses, and we just provide data on sort of referrals to them. So listing is important to us, whether you're moving out now or you're moving out in the future.
Awesome.
Thank you.
So one piece of feedback here, and I was just kind of quickly scanning through your deck here. Adekunle, I realized that there was a couple of versions of this pitch deck, and I think this was one that was like the short version. You mention your team verbally, but I think it is necessary for you to put a team slide in your deck. Your experiences from how you describe it and when I stalked you on LinkedIn are actually quite impressive. And your team sounds quite impressive too. And with something that's pre-seed, the earlier you go, investors are largely investing on their assessment of what is the potential of this team. So I would be very much front and center, which is like after this cover slide here, slide 2 should go right into who are we and why are we credible? Because I think you got a terrific story to share. So that was one area of feedback. Even for the short decks, like 5-slide decks, I think that's like a critical slide to include. There's one more piece of feedback here too that I just wanted to sneak in, which is, the thing that got me super excited about Livable when you applied here. I actually have pretty good mental models as a US investor of similar kinds of rental platforms that exist in North America or possibly in Europe. That has very close analog. And I felt like your story was quite simple, which is, look, US investor, and this is very specific to when you're pitching in the US, it's like, you probably are aware of like these kinds of platforms, Zeus Living and whatever. And the amazing thing is that the infrastructure for something similar in a country of 201 million Nigerians doesn't exist yet, right? And I'm actually building the Nigerian like version or the African version of this. It's like almost like a lazy way of pitching, which I like because I'm lazy too, of just like, you're familiar with these platforms here. We're building this platform for Africa right now, which is totally greenfield. And it almost feels like I almost have like the other like 20% or so context I need after the team to make a decision of like, this sounds pretty good. So it wasn't really questions, more so than just like those areas of feedback for tightening your story. And especially if you're talking to US investors, whom I think will probably be quite interested in this. Yeah.
Thank you, Eric.
Of course. Elizabeth, you want to sneak in a question?
I'll add in a couple of comments. Yeah. So building on Eric's comment, the other interesting trend that's happening is, sort of this idea of cutting out, let's call it middlemen or middlewomen. And so it sounds like that is something that you were doing. Like I was floored by just how much in fees all these middle layers take. And so I think that's actually a great trend. And it also means that you have a buffer to do things like sharing with renters, which I think is really clever. So that's one thought. The second thought, though, is, and this is actually more of a critique. And again, I focus a lot on the customer acquisition. It sounds like you have a lot of different pieces here. One thought that came to mind is it's really hard to pull in people organically with the timing constraints, such as like writing content, et cetera. That's a much longer term game because you need to be getting in front of lots of people, and then some of those people will be renting, and then some other people will have a timing thing. Have you thought about doing something like either partnering with groups like online communities that are around renting and maybe doing some sort of partnership there, and or maybe even just direct mail, like just sending a postal card or whatever and saying, hey, renters, you can make money here or get points or whatever, and just getting people signed up like that? I just feel like I would think a little bit more around more direct ways of getting renters. That's my comment.
Thank you, Elizabeth. That makes a lot of sense, actually. Thank you.
All right. Well, Adekunle, let's stick around for a few more minutes here. Hung, were there any questions that you saw pop up from the audience that we could pose to Adekunle or Elizabeth or myself?
Yes, we have one. Oluwaduni asked, what is the incentive for current tenants to share this information?
Adekunle, can you take that one?
Yeah. Thank you, Oluwaduni. So if you are planning to move out of your apartment soon, you don't mind earning money. You probably want to earn some money. Nobody earns money for moving out, right, in Nigeria. And that's something we are doing. If you're not planning to move out for now, we want to do incentivized listings when we raise money. So you can actually win rewards from different partners, right? For things that you already use, furniture, home appliances, even groceries, right? You can get discounts on those things. So that's an incentive for you to list. But I think the most important incentive is that if you went on Twitter today and you search for Lagos agents, just tweet Lagos agents, you will see the amount of anger that people have against Lagos agents or agents are. I mean, if you did the same thing for Nairobi, if you said Nairobi agents, that's in Kenya, you will see the same anger. So people look at us as, oh, we want to join you to fight this battle, right? That's sort of maybe and we have to push that emotional message more. People see it as, wow, we really want to do this, right? Yeah. I think that's the most important thing. But yes, you can get incentives, you can get discounts from partner businesses in your local community.
That's a really great alignment. I think, like, if you're positioning yourself as almost like fighting for justice to some degree on like an unfair market, really puts you aside on the consumer. That's a great message that tends to get shared around. Kind of like early days of Robinhood. That's kind of what they were trying to do, is like, let's just remove the fees. Like just get to trading consumers. So I really like that. Hung, can we sneak in maybe one more question for Adekunle?
So this one comes from an anonymous attendee. What is the distribution of commissions earned by Livable? 40% to tenant listings. How is the remaining 60% distributed?
So 60% comes to us as a business, actually. So we take the remaining 60%. Yeah.
Awesome. Maybe one more. Sure. We have like 1 minute left.
Okay, so Danny asked, how do you screen to ensure you don't see an uptick in scams? Airbnb is trying to combat the same issue, but haven't really solved it.
I'm not sure what you mean by scams, right? But because we are sort of a controlled marketplace, we verify the listings, right? Before and then connect to the landlord, if that's what you mean. But yes, we actually verify the listings and then confirm it before we get a tenant into the apartment. Thank you,
awesome.
Danny.
Awesome. Well, why don't we share some claps to Adekunle? He is the co-founder of Livable. Check it out, livable.ng. Really, really cool business. Thank you so much, Adekunle. What I'd like to do next is turn it over to our last founder for today's pitch session, Sophia. Sophia, are you there? Can you hear us?
I am. Hi, guys.
Hey, awesome. Well, whenever you're ready, I can start the timer for your 5 minutes.
Perfect. Thanks. All right.
Okay.
Cool. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much. I'm Sophia. I'm one of the co-founders of Jade. Jade is a completely new way to date. Next slide, please. So people are really frustrated with the current options to date. There are way too many apps. Once you get on one of these apps, you have to swipe through way too many people to actually find someone that you have a real connection with. These apps are really commodifying love, and like basically a lot of people are developing really bad behaviors around ghosting, whether that's both on the apps or then offline once people are meeting, and people are really frustrated. The pandemic has really illustrated to people that they want and crave these real connections, whether that's just a hookup or they're searching for the one, and the current apps just really aren't meeting their needs. Next, please. Awesome. So Jade is addressing the shortcomings of all of these current dating apps. It's actually an automated matchmaking platform that curates a daily batch of potential matches and then guides users along the dating journey all over text. And then we're actually going to skip the next 2 slides, please. The next one. Thanks. So it's actually a really large market opportunity. There's over 110 million single people in the United States. But from our research, we found that millennials are using on average 3 different dating apps, illustrating that none of these are actually meeting their needs. And over 30% of the US adult population that we're targeting is on either Tinder or Bumble. So again, people are really frustrated and they're not really happy with their current ways of meeting people. Next, please. So this is the way we actually have thought about the evolution of the dating market. So you originally had the rise of dating websites, it's kind of the version 1.0, and this is how people were, kind of transitioning from traditional ways of meeting each other with, either from school or work or in community-based settings to online. Then in the 2000s, you had the rise of actual dating apps, which we're most common and familiar with today, and the rise of this notion of swiping right and swiping left, which has really commodified the way people find love. And today, after the pandemic, we're realizing that people are craving these real connections right from the start and searching for ways to find these. There's been an uptick in a lot of community-based, matchmaking programs through like religious organizations, through other groups, and people are really trying to find ways to meet each other that aren't based on just swiping. Next, please. So in a lot of our research we've done, we've also surveyed our beta users who've signed up on our wait list. And we found that they actually also are really frustrated, and hence they're wanting to take a chance on a completely new type of solution that's really rethinking the way people are finding connection online. So as I was saying before, people are really frustrated with the current options. It's taking way too long to find a match. People have to swipe through many, many people before they click and find someone. And then when they do, meet someone they think is cute and maybe meet some of their criteria, when they dig in further, they're actually not compatible on a lot of, really important fundamental values and principles of how they want to live their life. And then there are a lot of other reasons that people aren't actually happy with the dating apps today. Next, please. Yeah, we're actually going to skip the next 3 slides. Thank you, just for the sake of time. One more. Great. So the Jade product is a little bit different. Like I said, it's not an app. It's actually a headless platform, taking a lot of inspiration from companies like Nudge Text and Lunchbox. So next slide, please. So like I said, it is a headless concept. And what this means is you actually make a profile in our web application. This is an example of what it would look like. So you make a profile, looks pretty similar to a lot of the current existing incumbents. And then from there, that's actually what you show to the world and what other matches can see about you. Next, please. Then the next step is you fill out this questionnaire. It's similar to like an OkCupid style of questions or, original eHarmony, but it's much shorter. It's about 20 questions. They are worded in a very millennial friendly language, and they're really get to the heart of who you are as a person, what you care about and what your values are, because you really want to be meeting people that align with these things right from the get-go. So no one's wasting time, regardless of what type of relationship you're looking for. Next, please. Great. So The whole idea of dating apps right now is that people are pretty frustrated and fatigued with them, whether that's having to log into them every day and it becomes just kind of a mindless game. So Jade wants to change the way people are participating in their search for love and actually make them an active participant. So we text you once a day saying, hey, your daily batch is ready. We limit you to seeing only 3 people every day because this is a scientifically proven number that allows you to actually focus on the options in front of you and realize who you actually think you'll get along with. Next, please. Then once you match with someone, we actually connect you right away over text. It's using Twilio proxy. So it's very similar to how you would text your Uber driver or Postmates. So it's completely anonymous. And so all personal information is protected. And you have a certain amount of time to talk with them and get to know them. And then we actually send you nudges throughout the dating process, telling you, hey, you haven't actually messaged this person, don't ghost, that's not okay. And there are many other examples because today people are really lost in how to actually date online. And this has led, like I said before, to a lot of really bad behaviors and people feeling like they're just another number and just another, kind of person behind a screen rather than a real person. Next, please.
Yep. And just we're about a minute over. So if you can spend the next 30 seconds to wrap, that'd be great.
Great. Sorry. And so our concierge platform is also there to help you kind of throughout the dating process. And so we personalize a lot of dates based on the information you shared in your survey. Next, please. You can go to the last slide, actually. So this is my other co-founder. We met at Harvard. We've both been on dating apps for a very long time and understand all of the pain points. And really were inspired based on our conversations with friends and other dating podcasts and a lot of dating articles we've read to make Jade.
Fantastic. All right. Well, Sophia, thank you so much. Big claps on the chat. Please send her some love on a great presentation. Elizabeth, do you want to go first with your questions for Sophia and Jade?
Sure. What is the business model and how do you plan to get customers?
Yeah, for sure. So the business model, we actually plan to charge a subscription fee. It's been pretty normalized with companies like Raya, with the newly launched Locks Club. So the newer players in the market right now are going kind of right from the get-go with the subscription-based model. And in terms of getting users, we're focused right now in New York City. It's kind of where not only we are, but that's where like the largest market is. And we are employing kind of a couple of different strategies. As the world opens, we're doing a lot more in-person tactics. We've actually put stickers all over in New York, which are driving a lot of signups. We've gone to a lot of singles events, and then we're also using a lot of social media as well.
One sort of like idea for you here is you may want to consider just like planned group events as well, just like 100-person meetups and things like that. Actually, in the early days of Instagram, when I was there, we used to do this in like every city. We just find the biggest influencer, have them host a party, and then send them a bunch of swag. It actually really did kickstart growth pretty well. So
awesome.
for you.
That's great. Yeah.
I mean, like on acquisition, I think that's like going to be the tightest part to respond to when it comes to these investor questions, because this is such a chicken and the egg, right? As a user, you want to make sure that there's already like critical mass in terms of the size of network, so you can find a really good match. And getting that going, I think is super tough. I'll say that like from like our hustle fund perspective, like, one of the reasons why we've been hesitant about dating apps is like, we're really unclear about how much money and effort it takes to get to that kind of level of critical mass, and viral loops are really tough. Actually, so speaking of like viral loops, maybe you can comment a little bit about, where do you think you see some edges in this concept around where this becomes like a little bit more viral, where like, organically you can start to see more and more that kind of growth?
Yeah, for sure. So on one end, we're employing a strategy where if you like your referral program, and for every person you refer, like within 3 people, you'll get a free month. So using that type of strategy that has been successful for other companies. And then we want to build out our concierge service to actually also be available to couples. So it's not just a single person. So the idea is that if someone is having a really good experience and it's using a lot of technology to automate that process, they'll also be inviting and telling their single friends like, hey, I had this really great date that was planned, because a lot of the growth from dating apps historically has been through word of mouth as well.
Okay. Elizabeth, do you have one more question you want to sneak in?
Yeah, actually, I have a couple of comments. So, one, I actually really do like that you're doing the subscription model because I think it gives you room for customer acquisition. The second is actually Coffee Meets Bagel, and I think some people mentioned this in the chat, actually employed this exact strategy. In fact, they are anti-swiping and did initial curation entirely manually. So I do think that that can work, but you're going to have to answer the question of how you are different and better from them. I think is probably the number one thing that dating apps are going to need to explain. One thing that I pull out of your pitch, though, that it may be different from some of the others is like you really actually make sure that this sort of bad behavior doesn't exist, which is, I think, something that a lot of dating apps have failed to look at. And so maybe your strong differentiator is sort of like the anti-app, because I think even Coffee Meets Bagel is an app. And so I don't know, I would play around with that, but you can certainly do a bunch of concierge things and collect money even, relatively manually.
Yeah, thank you. That's really helpful. Yeah.
All right. Well, Hung, we have a few minutes here. I don't know if there are any questions that popped in that could be relevant for Sophia to answer. Or
Yeah, we have a few. Rahul asks, having used dating apps for a while, I find the user pool broadly remains similar. Do you think this could be a problem?
Yes, I definitely understand what you're saying. I think that from our initial acquisition, we've gotten people who are very frustrated with the current options and like are looking for a different solution. This is a unique type of product where it's going to attract people, even though it's for anyone who like looking maybe for a hookup or a serious relationship. It's going to attract people who fundamentally are very tired of swiping, are very burnt out with the current options, and people who like that style are going to stay on those existing solutions. So it is attracting a different persona of person.
I mean, is that part of the reason it's called Jade? Is it the journey like you get a little bit jaded from like swiping and then you want something a little bit more real?
Yes, it's that's exactly it. It's a little play on words there.
Got it. Really good. Hung, are you seeing some other questions for Sophia?
Yeah. Key asks, hi, Sophia. How would you describe the magic moment for your app that will create an emotional affinity?
It's a really good question. I think when we've been user testing the survey, we've really gotten to the core of what makes people excited and really makes up their values and personality and how they interact with someone else and what they want in a relationship. And we think that when people are actually shown people in their matches that right away they're getting along with, that's going to be the moment where it clicks for them. Right now, you have to swipe through so many people and you have to have these long conversations, and there's so many points that you have to go through before you actually even figure out if you're compatible. And the questionnaire kind of takes all of those steps in the funnel away. So right away, you're having this moment where you're like, oh, I actually like this person and I actually get along and there's something real there.
Great response. I think we have time for maybe one more question for Sophia. And then what I'd like to do is invite back everyone who pitched today for kind of an open Q&A. We'll have about 10 minutes for our audience to pose questions to us through the Q&A response box for myself, Elizabeth, everyone who's presented today. Hung, was there one more question maybe for Sophia?
One more. So Demir asked, how do you plan on working against the stigma many people have towards dating apps in general?
Yeah, for sure. I think actually going to Elizabeth's point, I think we want to really hone in on this idea that's an anti-app. We've gotten a lot of feedback that people are very burnt out from apps in general, not just dating apps. Like no one wants to download another app. And that's why we've gotten a lot of really great feedback on this tech space. It's kind of comes directly to you. It makes you more of an active participant in viewing your options. And so you're not really just passively involved in the dating process. So I think that's great and definitely want to hone in on that.
Awesome. Well, why don't we do this? Let's give some virtual shouts over to Sophia in the chat. Great work in pitching Jade today. And actually huge shouts to, to Pablo, to Avikunle, to Sophia. All of you guys did great, answered some hard questions and took the feedback very well too. So we got a little bit of time here. Okay, so we have about 10 minutes. Everyone is available right now. Hung, are you seeing any questions that are coming in from the audience that might be good to pose to the group?
Yes, Akil asks, when do we as a founder know that the investor is losing interest along your pitch?
Is losing interest along your pitch?
Right.
All right. I guess like so I'll start, Elizabeth. I'd love to get your take. So let me just show you like the most common thing that happened when I was pitching when it wasn't Zoom back in 2005. It'd be like, hi, I'm Eric. I'd like to pitch you on my little education business. And they're like, okay. They would just like stop paying attention, right? And like or like on Zoom, like it's like super fucking clear that they're just like looking at their emails or something like this, right? In those cases, just a little quick tip, I would like try to snap them back into attention by either like telling them a story, sharing a joke, or if they're really a jerk and I just didn't want to deal with them, I would just like call them out and be like, so who are you texting right now? Is this your wife, your girlfriend? Your paramour? Like, who is this? Like, I did snap at a few of them too. I'm a little bit immature though. Elizabeth, what's the more, what's your take on like on that response?
Echoing this, I mean, when I pitched VCs for my startup, everybody made it perfectly clear they were not interested. You will have no problems telling. That's one thing that VCs don't hide. But I think the way that I would handle, as I also got more bold, like throughout the process, it's like, hey, it seems like maybe this is not that interesting. I think in the best use of time, like for everyone, do you think it makes sense to continue this conversation? I think that's a legit question. Frankly speaking, if they're not interested, you're all just wasting your time, right? Like just cut it short. I think sometimes founders are afraid to do that because they're afraid of the power dynamics, or maybe they're afraid to potentially lose a lead. But the reality is they're not going to get involved.
Yeah. Pablo, Sophia, Adekunle, I don't know if any of you are brave enough. Don't name names. Don't say Elizabeth did this to me. But like, if you've been in this situation, and how did you confront it?
I can start with this because this is actually my third startup, and I have come across the let me turn on my phone immediately. So I think you have to be careful as a founder. One, there are certain investors that are very busy, right? And they may not be able to pay attention the whole time that you're presenting, talking for 20 or 30 minutes, mostly if there are other people in the room. So maybe not during Zoom, but if you're doing it in person, that happened a couple of times. But I love what Elizabeth said. I've done that before. Do you think is this something that interests you? Should we continue talking? There's nothing wrong with that. You're not going to convert. Think of it like a lead generation with sales, right? You want to know who like your investors are, like immediately click, and you'll know when you finally find that investor that is like, oh my God, this is so cool. They start coming up with ideas, and you start talking about stuff. It's like, yeah, let's dive deeper into that. And they get excited about it. That's when you know you finally found that right investor. So
one thing to build on that though is like, if an investor asks you hard questions and it doesn't feel like it's going right because they are hard questions, that does not mean it's not going well. I've asked all of our founders so many hard questions, and they probably thought, oh, geez, she hates this business. That's engagement. You want engagement. People who are playing with their phone, that's lack of engagement. So I think apathy is different from hard questions.
Awesome. Great response too, Pablo. It's much more mature than what I do. Okay, Hong, let's, is there some more questions that we can pop into this panel?
John asks, how much of the business model, such as acquisition, gaining market share, anticipated revenue, needs to be built out prior to the pitch?
Okay. Really depends, right? So at Hustle Fund, we focus on pre-seed stage investing. Largely the businesses that we heard today were pre-seed, seed stage, like, accepting angel checks as well as some early institutional checks. For my take is that 70% of the investment decision is an assessment as to, do I want to take a bet on this team to figure it out? Usually the answer to like how well broken down are the unit economics going to be, or like what are we going to price this thing as a SaaS product? Those things will have to come through experimentation, customer discovery over time. Having like some sort of like strongly held opinion, or strong opinion that's loosely held, though, on just like, this is how I think the economics break down over time, is important to sort of test for that too, just to get a sense of how a team thinks about the business. But do I have expectations that what they shared today is how this business is going to look in 5 years? Absolutely not. I think it's, in fact, almost usually the case that it's going to be different. Elizabeth, do you have a take on this?
Yeah. So as you've all seen, I asked all three of them questions around unit economics, go to market, customer acquisition. So that's something I care a lot about. But to Eric's point, it's not about the specific numbers. It's about how you think about it, what experiments you've done to show that you care about it and that you prioritize it. And so really, I just want to understand how people think and how much they care about it, because that matters a lot to me. I honestly believe in this day and age, customer acquisition is almost everything about a software business.
Yeah, totally. Hung, what else we got here? We're on a roll. I think we got a few more minutes.
Of course, Preetham asks, what do investors want and expect from founders when they provide them feedback in a pitch, besides answering the question and acknowledging the feedback is good?
Okay, I'm trying to understand this question. Can you say that one more time? Sorry.
What do investors want and expect from founders when they provide them with feedback in a pitch?
Okay, I got a very cynical take, and Elizabeth has probably the one they should pay attention to. I think VCs are largely narcissists and want validation that they sound smart from you when they're asking most of their questions. Okay, like I just like, sorry. I mean, I just, that's my very cynical take on that. And there's ways to sort of manipulate that back, frankly, right? Like if you're trying to ingratiate yourself, then like for a narcissist, it's sort of like showing that you've heard and then sort of responding back or something, like whatever. Or it could be a good filter of just like, do I really want to spend 10 years of my life with this kind of a person? But like, there's a different kind of view, I guess, that's a little bit more real. So like, if you're dealing with someone that's asking you like really tough questions, we sometimes really, really want to see like, what does a founder respond to like when it's really, really tough? You know, like, do they have like a graceful way of saying it? That like, if it's a super defensible, like jujitsu, like snap right back at you, then I'm asking the question is like, do I want to spend 10 years with Sophia? If she's like, bullying me or something back. This is no knock on Sophia. She seems amazing, actually. Elizabeth, what's your thoughts?
Yeah, so Eric is much better with people than I am. So I don't think you necessarily have to compliment them or pander to them. That's my personal take. Of course, everyone loves that. Like, so stroking people's ego certainly is something. But if you don't want to do that, I think that's fine. But the most important thing is do not be defensive. And VCs can spot that a mile away. And actually, one of the good things about pitching on Zoom is you can see yourself and you can see your face and what you're showing. And I would actually practice that. I say that, like, I think my natural instinct is to show a defensive face. And that's something that I have worked on and still work on over the years, because I think people want to know, even if you don't see eye to eye, like, can you take feedback objectively, consider it, whether you agree or not is another thing, but that's what people want to know.
One thing about defensive, I think it's okay to be defensive, right? You could be like, look, I really disagree with that statement. Here's why. But you could be really gracious still. So actually a lesson I learned from Elizabeth's grandfather, who lived to be 100 recently, before I passed, was a story that you shared with me, Elizabeth, which was like, he could tell you the worst feedback, but he'd always be smiling when he's sharing it. He's like, Elizabeth, this is why I think you're a terrible person, right? Like, you are so unethical, you're a narcissist. Like he would, that sounds like something that he did actually, just in like, he would, as a result, because he smiled, like it somehow like like turned the situation temperature down, right? So I think about that quite a bit in terms of really hard feedback. So a thought there. By the way, that wasn't feedback for Elizabeth. I have way worse feedback for her.
He likes my grandfather better than me.
I wish I could have started this company with her instead, or with him instead. Hung, last one we can sneak in super quick before we wrap.
Okay, yeah. So Victor asked, generally speaking, when is the right time to seek pre-seed funding? Are today's participants too early?
No, actually, I think, Pablo, Adekunle, Sophia, you guys are great. I mean, this is the right time to be putting together an angel round. I would say that for most VC funds, we like to see teams that are full-time or like just about to jump on full-time, have some sort of like maybe rough prototype at least. And can answer some of these questions around team, problem, solution, market, and traction. Elizabeth, do you want to take the final word on responding there?
Yeah, I think they're all the right stage. I also thought all of their pitches were quite good. So even though I started picking at them, don't walk away thinking they were bad. I think they were quite good. I do think, though, the most important thing is, you are going to get investors who will say you're too early. And so then it's a matter of figuring out which investors actually invest at pre-seed and which ones actually don't. Everybody says they invest super early, but the reality is that most of them don't, and everyone has a different definition of what's early.
Well, we are actually at time here. I wanted to just ask people to send a final shout virtual clap to Pablo, Adekunle, Sophia. Pablo is the founder and CEO of Flora Health. Adekunle is co-founder of Livable, Nigeria, and Sophia, co-founder at Jade. Thank you guys so much. You did a terrific job today. So big claps, y'all. And then, of course, as we sign off, we just want to send a final thank you to the Ether, to Oracle, NetSuite for allowing us to put on today's session. We do these live pitch sessions every quarter, me and Elizabeth and Hung. So hope that we can feature one of you in the audience for our next session. Thanks very much, everyone, for participating today. Really appreciate it.